Thank you very much. It's the Human Factors Competence event, and I'm in an environment that I'm not that familiar with. I'm using equipment that fell off my skirt earlier on, and since Les said this morning, please watch that you don't trip over bags, I've been stressing about the 3-metre walk from my chair to get on this stage to get behind the lectern for the last 3 hours. So perhaps I'm maybe a case study in human factors and competence. So let me get started. As Les says, I'm Susan Smart. I'm with the Engineering and Construction Industry Training Board based here in Aberdeen. And ECITB have been working with Step Change for about 2 years now. And this morning's presentation is about the work that we've been doing with mechanical joint integrity, both for specialist critical bolting and small bore tubing. And the other thing that I thought about with the human factors and competence thing was that I hadn't actually learnt what I needed to do. So let me just check that here we go. Right, I think I'm set now. So what I'd like to cover with you in this short presentation is really, why this particular area is important, where it started, the lessons that we've learned as we've progressed over the many years that we've been working on this particular area, looking at the current industry model, and finally, where we are now with it all. So let us first reflect on why this particular work activity is so important. This is a safety critical aspect of operation. If isolation's not been done, if procedures for dismantling or assembling are not carried out in the correct manner, if the selection of components is incorrect, then this can increase the risk of injury to the individual or individuals working in this particular area, and may also lead to loss of containment. Obviously, if this does happen, it's going to have a severe impact, will cause business interruption, environmental issues. So I'd suggest that this is reason enough to ensure that all individuals involved in mechanical joint activity have the necessary skills, ability, knowledge to carry out the task in hand. So I'm going to sort of take us through the journey that we've gone on to kind of get to the point of being able to deliver what we see as the best practice model for the oil and gas industry. So where did it all start? Well, for ECITB, back in the mid-1990s, we developed a training unit which was about hydraulic torquing and tensioning of bolted flange connections. Lots of training was done, but it was recognised that by splitting these particular units into 2 separate training units would allow for more focused training, and individuals would only undertake the training that was relevant to their role, rather than having to do training on an activity that they were unlikely to perform. So in 2002, these units were split, and then moving into 2006, we brought in another unit which was about hand torquing and tightening. And I've said that there was lots of training being done. So we were doing lots of training, but individuals were not receiving certification. And that was because the on-site element was not necessarily being completed, and that was that individuals were doing training, but when they went into the workplace, logbooks weren't being completed, which meant that they had to do that in order to be certificated. So in 2008, ECITB launched our endorsed courses, which saw training providers being licensed to deliver training, which had a knowledge element as well as having to undertake practical tasks. And at that point, they could get a certificate of having done training. In 2009, we then brought in the first of the small bore tubing training units and started the delivery of these courses. So we move on now into 2010, and through the step change, the initiative to address the competence and behaviours associated with personnel involved in mechanical joint activity was raised. It had been highlighted that competence-related issues were a major contributing factor in cases of hydrocarbon release. Then the step change working group was formed, and the purpose of that was to define the minimum standards of competency for personnel carrying out mechanical joint activity. The guidance document, and there's some at the desk if you haven't got one already, was first released in March 2012, and the new update is out now. And it allows companies to assess their current working methods and adopt improved methods for demonstrating MJI competence with the industry best practice. And this diagram here just gives you an understanding of perhaps how long it has taken from the mid-90s to now for the UK CS. We have got a robust model in place through the many iterations that I've just mentioned, starting with just one particular training unit to where we are now. The other countries, Norway, Europe, America, they're not as far advanced in their journey as we are. They're probably 1 or 2 years down. We're 16 plus years on to get to the point where we are now. We do know that that our model is very robust, that anything that may come out of these other countries and what they would develop, we will certainly meet or exceed anything that they come up with, and that once they do get to the place of developing their model, then we will carry out a gap analysis just to make sure that that there's nothing that we've missed. So moving on, lessons learned, because that's really what it's all about. It has taken us a long time to get to this point, and we have, learnt a lot along the way. And as I said, in the early days, there was lots of training happening. And that particular training, because of the nature of the Engineering and Construction Industry Training Board at the time, we focused quite a lot on just the construction. But given that the oil and gas sector is well established and needs to, break down joints for maintenance and repair, then we needed to include dismantling within the training standard. And obviously, if we were doing dismantling, then there needed to be something put there on isolation. Similarly, there was nothing in the training standards on clamp connectors, so now that's been included as well. There was lots of training being done, as I said, and we've learnt along the way that adult workers are a little bit reluctant to complete logbooks or portfolios in the workplace. So we've now replaced these with work-based task assignments. The task assignments will list the activities to be undertaken. They need to be validated by the supervisor. So it's a much simpler but very effective process to ensure the consolidation of the knowledge has been developed after the training has been done. We're aware that training doesn't equal competence. It's obviously just one aspect of it. So the development of technical tests was key to validating an individual's skill, ability and job knowledge. And we have developed a number of technical tests for this particular area. In some cases, individuals, and this was more about the existing workforce, were looking for a vehicle in order to refresh their knowledge before doing technical tests. And this is where there was the development of e-learning, computer-based training modules to kind of assist in this, what was mentioned earlier in the human factors thing was about, you know, we want to set people up for success. So we wanted to develop something that people could use to make sure that they could refresh their knowledge before they then went on into stage 3, getting tested. And finally, the last point on the side there is really about our downstream colleagues. We had interest from the downstream sector. They liked the technical tests that we had. However, they wanted to see a pressure aspect included in the testing. We considered it and felt that it was a really good development, and it's now included in one of the technical tests. How this works is that there will be water contained within the pipe. And when the candidate starts their test, and the first thing that they're going to do is kind of slacken the joint, liquid is obviously going to start to come out. The correct action for that individual is obviously they're going to bolt back up and they're going to say, I'm not going to continue on. And obviously that is the correct course of action to take because there's something in the pipe that's not been correctly isolated. If this happens, the examiner then just drains off the liquid and the test continues. Obviously, if you have a candidate who has taken no recognition of that, then obviously the test is stopped, that person's referred for further training. So these were the lessons that we've learned throughout this, this long journey that we've taken to get to this point. This is the model. There's one for the specialist critical bolting and there's one for the small bore tubing. Other than the kind of content about the different courses, they are exactly the same. The model's 4 stages, you're likely all to be familiar with it. Stage 1 is initial training, and we have 4 approved courses for the specialist critical bolting, 3 for small bore tubing, and obviously on the courses the individuals need to demonstrate their attainment of knowledge and practical skills on the training course. They'll progress on to stage 2. It's done in the workplace, and this is where the individuals will consolidate their learning and use the work-based task assignments which I mentioned earlier, and the process here is going to take possibly 3 to 12 months. Stage 3 is where the individuals will then go and complete their formal assessment, and that is where they will go for technical testing. And we've got now 5 technical tests associated with the specialist critical bolting and 3 for small bore tubing. And then you move into stage 4, which is reassessment every 3 years. I think it was mentioned earlier about knowledge fade. Obviously, it was felt that 1 or 2 years was a little bit too soon to be doing reassessment. 4 and 5 years is a bit too long, and 3 years is really the optimum time for someone to go back before there's any significant knowledge fade. Current picture. We currently have 12 providers within the specialist critical bolting area, 3 providers now delivering on small bore tubing. We have around about 3 or 4 providers that are looking at approval at the moment. So we've got a good network of provision established throughout the UK. Some of the providers have actually delivered training in Italy, Ireland, Germany, and we do have 1 provider that has now been licensed and they want to start delivering this model in the Middle East. So North Sea best practice is going global, so that's really good news. The training figures also on the slide. are very positive, and it will look like that certainly by the end of this year we'll have doubled what we did in 2012. So I think we're managing to get the message out about this particular product, about the model, the importance that this safety critical area within operation and how important it is. And I think finally for me, the last slide is that we would like to see, as part of the Step Change Competence Group, that we have commitment from not only senior management but individuals themselves, that they want to ensure that we achieve and maintain mechanical joint operation procedures to a high standard. And I think that's me done. Thank you.